Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Joanne Papst. I'm the Research Director for the Shingo Institute at Utah State University. And I have the pleasure of guest hosting for Mary Price, who's off enjoying a well-deserved holiday. Today, I'm honored to introduce a longtime friend of the Shingo Institute, Mr. Mike Martyn. Mike is a 5-time Shingo Publication Award recipient, and he was most recently recognized at our conference last week for his outstanding case study, Redefining Excellence from Maturity to Mastery. He is a member of the Shingo Academy, a Shingo Examiner, and a faculty fellow, and has partnered with so many organizations that have gone on to earn Shingo recognition. Earlier this month, our newsletter featured an article by Mike with the same title as today's discussion. If you'd like to revisit that piece, you can find it at shingo.org/articles. Mike, we are grateful to have you with us today, and thank you for taking the time to share your insights with our audience today. I'll turn the time over to you now.
Sounds great. Thanks, Joanne. I always like being back, and it's kind of cool timing. I think I got really lucky that we have this timing, that we just came off Shingo Connect. We just came off this awesome opportunity to, literally reconnect with people all over the world who are pursuing excellence. I had a chance to do a workshop during that time where I talked about this topic, and thank you for allowing me to do that. And I took I did the article on this and sent that out, and I hope people felt it was valuable. And if if you haven't seen it, maybe check it out. And one of the things that I really wanted to do during the workshop and when I was at Shingo was kind of stretch our thinking about what excellence means. What it means to us in different phases of our journey, whether we're just starting out our journey to excellence, maybe whether we're in a second phase, which is we're striving for Shingo, we're really trying to, capture and hone what best practice means relative to our maturity in our organization, or even what it might mean when we talk about legacy, when we talk about what legacy do we leave with our people, with our community, to the broader maybe Shingo world group that is out there that is all striving for it. And so really this talk and the case study came out of those discussions. The case study itself, I got this question. It's in the process of being formatted to be published, so that'll come out soon. But we really tapped into some themes. This case study is all about the work over a number of years with an organization, Android Industries. And it's how we took this transition of how we define excellence relative to the Shingo model, the Shingo benchmarks, what maturity over a lifetime of an organization means relative to excellence, how we use that to transform a culture, to start getting some amazing results and impact. But then as we also stretched ourselves to ask a different question, what did it mean to leave a legacy? What did it mean to do something that would outlast the work that we were doing now? And how did that turn into a different model? How did that really change our mindset and our thinking? How did that truly stretch us to think about how you use the guiding principles of Shingo as a foundation, but also tap into some what we call transformational principles? So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that journey. Obviously, we just have 20 minutes this morning, so I'm going to focus a bit on the thinking behind it, what it means to really challenge even your own definition of excellence. Now, you've seen right from the cover, you saw it at the slide. I get this question a lot. Those of you who maybe have joined some of our other talks have noticed that over this work and of this body of what I'm putting together right now, I've really used F1 as a theme, as a medium to talk about excellence. And it was something that as we were exploring what excellence meant to us with the work that we were doing at Android, it really became an approach to our thinking that really helped frame excellence for us. And really, because achieving excellence in F1, the hallmarks of that are, number one, that performance requires precision. We wanted to get this idea that we had to be precise with what we do, how we approach it, our systems, our tools, our behaviors, but even precise in our commitment to what continuous improvement means. In F1, improvement is non-negotiable. If you're not continuously improving, if you are not pushing the bounds within that, regulatory environment to do better every single day, you're just not going to be competing week in and week out. Teamwork is essential. This idea that no matter how great of a car we have or how great of a driver we are, that if we don't have the support of the team on race day, we're not going to make it. We're not going to be successful. Excellence is built on innovation, not just continuous improvement each and every day, but also how we stretch ourselves with innovation. And truly, leaders are the drivers of success. We wanted to make that analogy early on, that as leaders, we had to commit to our craft. We had to consistently, improve on what we were doing and actually be a conduit between that car, the team, and to get results on the track. So it just became this perfect analogy that you'll see throughout this that I really want to explore today when we talk about truly what is excellence, but even more, what does it mean to continue to redefine excellence in your organization? And I took a bit of a different tack at the conference, rather than just going through maybe the technical aspect of it and educating it. The more I got to thinking about this and what does excellence mean, but also what does it mean to stretch your definition of excellence, I found myself thinking back to a race, 1980, a Monaco Grand Prix, and this interaction between two teammates, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna. And this is a famous race, and it's a famous, really when you dig into it a little bit more, what we're going to do this morning is you really see two different philosophies of drivers. You see two different approaches to winning on the track. But what I hope to share with you today is how important each was to motivate each other, and the complement together is really what pushed each driver. But let's look at these two drivers that this interaction came together on this race weekend. First, Alain Prost, successful in his own right, four-time world champion, 199 starts, 51 wins, 106 podiums, 22 poles, and 41 fastest laps. Fastest laps being, the lap time within the race context during the race. And then you have Ayrton Senna, also three-time world champion. Tragically, his life cut short by a crash in 1994. 161 starts, 41 win, 80 podiums, 65 poles, and 19 fastest laps. But that doesn't really truly tell the story of both men and their relationship together. This is their body of work, but head to head, it told a similar but a bit different story. But here's what I'd like to pull out of it for us today. Proust's philosophy was always trying to drive a bit below 100%, was to regulate his driving, give himself some time to think, and he felt that made him more efficient. He was known for conserving his brakes and tires early and leaving them fresher for a challenge at the end. And when he approached his car and working with the mechanics, he wanted to set up his car for balanced configurations, and he valued what happened on race day more than what happened in qualifying. Okay. And if you're not familiar with F1, you don't need to be. You don't need to be crazy like me that's totally got into it from this analogy. But remember this, that if you're not familiar with it, on Saturday is qualifying. It's really where you figure out, and you, based on lap times, where you're going to start on the grid, and then Sunday's the race. Now let's look over to Senna. Senna's philosophy was totally different. It was to find the absolute maximum on every single lap in every session. He treated qualifying, his opportunity to be himself, his car against the track and the time, as sacred. He pursued transcendent single lap speed as the purest expression of a driver's capability. So what you did in qualifying and what you were able to do on that track was the expression of you as a driver. He was unmatched in the rain, in basically severe weather condition. And his approach was described as being very visceral, emotional, and relentless. So it sets up this juxtaposition as you have two gentlemen who are taking a different approach. They have, in essence, a different philosophy to how they approach racing, but they were both successful. So then we get to this fateful weekend, and we get to this time where they meet up. They were teammates at McLaren at the time. It was interesting that they were very contentious with each other. They were fierce rivals, but they also developed this amazing relationship of pushing each other. So now we come to 1988. We're in Monaco, and now I'm going to show you just a really short video that was done kind of as a retrospective by Senna after the race. So let's take a listen.
Some moments when I am actually driving just detach me completely from anything else.
Senna is 28 years old, and he is a quite amazing individual. The way he applies himself to his racing.
And I was going. I was going, and I was going, and I was going.
Behind this apparently sole runner here at Monaco.
Suddenly, I was about 2 seconds faster than anyone else. By being a racing driver, you are under risk all the time. And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. I suddenly realized that I was no longer driving conscious, and I was in a different dimension. The circuit for me was a tunnel, which I was just going. And I realized I was well beyond my conscious understanding. I was kind of driving it by instinct.
He never wanted to beat me. He wanted to immediately. He wanted to show the people that he was much stronger, much better. And that was his weakness.
Slow down, please. Slow down, just slow down.
Ayrton Senna has hit the wall.
Senna in the barrier. He's driving the car.
Ayrton Senna is out of his car and out of this race.
Ayrton Senna goes out of the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Absolutely incredible. But now Alain Prost wins Monaco again for the 4th time in his career.
I just came to so close to perfection that weekend that I relaxed. I opened windows for mistakes, and I learned that there, and I got much stronger. After that, somehow I got closer to God, and that has been very important for me as a man.
Okay, so I realized that in a short time, 20 minutes we have together, stretch it to 30, that showing that video takes a bit of chunk of time, but I think it sets up this interplay between the two, this difference in philosophy. But what was amazing during that weekend on Saturday, if you missed it, Senna put together what many arguably say is the greatest lap in F1 history, where it's him against the track. He and Proust are on the same team. They have the same configuration, the same car, and Senna takes pole over his teammate, who are by far the dominant team, by 1.5 seconds. Unheard of gap when it comes to qualifying. People can't believe it. Did not understand what happened. It was not even recorded at the time, which is quite fascinating that it's talked about 38, 40 years later based on what people remember of that. But then you get to race time. Senna is having an incredible race. He's 55 seconds ahead of Proust on Monaco, which is a very narrow track. It's known as he was unbeatable that day. 55 seconds with 11 laps to go out of 67. And he gets into this other dimension and he keeps pushing it. Bruce McLaren's on the headset. He's saying, slow down. You don't need this. Slow down. And he keeps trying to maximize that speed. He keeps trying to get closer and closer to perfection. He ends up hitting the wall with 11 laps to go. Proust wins. But who excelled at Monaco? Who truly excelled? No one remembers. Really, I hate to say this. I don't want to be disrespectful to Proust, but nobody remembers that 4th Monaco. What they remember is that greatest lap. They also remember the crash. But what's interesting is what Senna took from that. Is that he said, he won the next 6 out of 8 races. He never lost Monaco again after that incident. He won it 6 times in a row. And what I want to submit to you today is that when you answer the question of who excelled, the answer depends on how you define excellence. And what I want you to see is that I think we need both definitions of excellence from both drivers to truly unlock our potential, to get as close as we can to perfection in our organization and to really touch what legacy can mean. So if you look at Prost here, I'm not going to read all of this, but I think he's in the embodiment of what we would call defining excellence by those guiding principles. You know, respect that he showed for machinery, teammates, and everything else. He led with humility. He didn't need to be the fastest on every lap if in the bigger picture he won the championship. You can see as I went through there how he embraced scientific thinking, focused on his process, you know, assured quality at the source. He was known for a smooth driving style so that errors didn't enter in. And he would conserve his resources to be able to apply value in our mind, you know, when and where he needed it during the race. He thought systemically about thinking about the entire race. He was known as being consistent, reliable, and he did win. And he did win. I mean, that is an important part that we want to take out of here. He had a philosophy, he had a style, and he won. But now go over to Senna. Senna, I would say, is what it means to redefine excellence, is to touch mastery and start to think past just existing benchmarks, you know, maximizing what we know now, but then really touch what's possible. His impact has been far reaching. It's phenomenal. I'm working in Brazil. And when you go to Brazil and you mention Senna's name after all this time, you know, he died in 1994 and it's truly legacy. You know, he had a philosophy that he lived that was so deeply embedded. It bypassed that conscious thought and produced results that defied rational explanation. I mentioned that he continuously learned. By pushing the limits, he accelerated his learning. And what was interesting is that by taking this approach, by having this mindset and this philosophy, he didn't just improve within the existing paradigm. He didn't just mature as a driver. He shattered what was possible. Moves that were considered dangerous when he made them are now considered ordinary. He redefined what excellence was. And watching Senna during that time, it was so powerful. They still talk about that lap, how they felt about it, the experience of watching it. So it's not operational excellence in the same definition as Proust, but it's experience at a deep level. So here's what I want to posit to you. Here's kind of the main thrust of what we discovered as we were going through this journey of redefining excellence, is that depending upon what you value, depending upon what you put emphasis on, is the outcome that you're going to likely achieve. Senna was known for his Saturday excellence. If you value peak performance, qualifying speed, race wins, and championship won, Senna dominated Proust during their time together. Dominated is a bit of a strong statement, but basically he won 32 times versus 23. He had 45 poles versus 17, and he won 3 titles during that time to Proust's 2. But if you value consistency, finishing rate, race pace, sustainability, and total output, Proust holds the edge. He had 53 podiums to 48. He got in the top 3 more often. And during race day, he had 21 of the fastest laps to 11. But here's the thing that was an interesting dialogue when I taught this and we were talking about this during Shingo is, I don't want you to think about either or. I want you to really ponder what it would be like to embrace both, what it would be like, and that to have this tension between these two, because truly these two gentlemen were rivals, but they pushed each other. Proust is the one that convinced McLaren to bring his fiercest competitor in, to push him, and said it made him a better racer. He copied the way that Senna would set up his car. Senna, when Proust decided to retire before Senna died, Senna was leading the forefront, calling him, saying, "Don't retire. I need you on that grid to bring out the best in me." All right. So this is really kind of what we wrestled with in a very minor way. But when we talked about these phases at Android of what does it mean for us to embrace defining excellence by Shingo with align, enable, and improve with those 10 guiding principles and focus on principle systems and behavior. But then also, what does it look like if we embrace legacy? If we start thinking about our mindset, the method we use, and a commitment to mastery. And we created or tapped into these 5 transforming principles and focused on our philosophy as an organization, the experience we create for our people, and what type of impact we're making to society. And so that play, and what I would submit to you is that the more we push to redefine what we were doing based on legacy, the more it even improved the way we thought about and the way we implemented principle systems and behaviors relative to the Shingo definition of excellence. So what we were trying to solve was 3 things: speed, scale, and substance. And this is when we think about what's that legacy. If you think in terms of what I just said about Senna and achieving that perfect lap time and pushing ourselves, we posited these 3 gaps in our mind. Number 1, what would you have to do? How would you have to change the way you think and operate to go from 10 years plus in a Shingo journey down to 3 without cutting corners, no matter any facility anywhere in the world? Second was scale. How do you do this aligning across more than 20 global locations at one time versus approaching it like a plant by plant transformation, which is still what we see, where plants are maximizing instead of the whole, the enterprise. And then the last was substance. We often talk about sustainability, and sustainability is incredibly important, but I wanted to elevate the conversation that if we have substance, you can sustain systems that generate a bad experience, but you can sustain them through follow-up. But I wanted our transformation to be substantive. How do we create systems where it's an environment where people take pride in their work and they feel like they're part of something meaningful? Now that led us to really build the transformation based on these 3 things, going from principles to potential. We had to adjust how we think, our mindsets. We had to look at the method, not just systems and tool, but our approach to how we continuously improve. And then we had to embrace this idea that mastery was part of the equation. We had to go past just thinking in terms of race day and how well we did if we were Proust into pushing what was possible on Saturday as well, like Senna did. So I'll just show you a couple of the things that we considered in our method. This is really the hallmark of how we bridge mindset and mastery. Number 1 is we built a turnkey model. The idea behind this is, literally, even though you wouldn't do it at F1, put the key in, turn it, and you're starting that engine up and we're ready to drive. So we put in, 20 plus years of experience into how do you create an OpEx office, an excellence office that can support an enterprise-wide at scale? What does a daily management system need to look like that's going to accomplish speed, scale, and substance? We've built an online portal that creates consistency across the globe and allows people to gamify and really look at where they're at on the race board in terms of how they're doing their implementation, their maturity, and how close they're getting to mastery. We have a coaching certification and a program that's been built to really train all leaders, but also to create this connection between the excellence office and each location around the world. We've defined a success path, which is a very specific step-by-step path by level to go from whether you've started out right at the beginning all the way to you are now tapping into or touching mastery in areas. And then we define for the model, for the approach, what are those critical processes, those critical systems that are most important. So what I hope you see here is we wrap this all in this analogy of the car, this precision, aerodynamics, safety for our leaders, where the tires, the success path being where the rubber meets the road, literally put it all together to say we need a holistic method or approach that's going to look at one level higher than just systems, behaviors, and tools, and really help us understand how to solve those gaps between where the organization was, which was truly excellence by industry standards and amazing, but now start to tap into legacy. As you might imagine, we put that all into our analogy of how the car, the driver, the team, and the track all fit together to win races, get on the podium, and win championships. That all translates out into behaviors, elements, artifacts, and maturity levels. And then we really blended this idea of what I would say, maybe in our analogy, Proust versus Senna. So from Proust, from that idea of Shingo excellence and the 10 guiding principles, everything that a driver learns, our leader learns, is how to be around the track at level 1, level 2, and level 3. And those correspond to what we would call a Shingo bronze, a Shingo silver, or, winning the Shingo prize. And so there is a step-by-step approach of how they, drive the track to success at each level. But then we also allowed ourselves this opportunity to create space like Senna did, to push the bounds of what's possible in how we contribute to society, adopt a philosophy, learn continuously, enable innovation, and design for experience. And that's really tapping back into that slide that I hope you picked that up with, what was truly legendary about Senna, and why after all these years, Proust is always thought of with professional courtesy. People recognize that he was a great driver, but if you go through history with Hamilton and Schumacher and others, and if they say who's the best, you will notice that so many of them say it was Senna, because he tapped into something larger than just race day. But what I want to make you understand is that he needed Proust. He needed both to bring out his best. All right, so this is where our play in this model is between what we consider maturity by existing benchmark standards and also allowing for a commitment to mastery. All right, there have been some tremendous results. I'm not going to take time on that. I know I'm running out of time, but I do want to leave you with this, that when we talk about redefining excellence, I want you to think excellence is not a fixed point. It's not level 5 on the maturity model or on the maturity scale. It's an evolving pursuit. The Shingo model, the 10 guiding principles, the dimensions, the behaviors, they give you a foundation. We use it. We promote it all over the world. It's phenomenal. But if you want to produce the kind of lap that people still talk about decades later, if you want to leave something that is bigger than an individual leader, a plant, or a generation, you've got to go farther. You've got to tap into your adopting a leadership philosophy, designing for experience, enabling breakthrough innovation, and focus on continuously learning. Most importantly, I think in our mindset and in our vision for what we're doing with excellence, I would love to hope to inspire or challenge you to set your sights on contributing something to the world that's bigger than our own results, that's bigger than any prize or any maturity score that we could get with our people and with our processes. So to wrap this up, my challenge to you, if you will choose to accept it, is to make excellence a passion and not a program. Programs end, passion evolves. And the organizations that are still being talked about decades from now are going to be the ones that understand this difference. And what I'll tell you is, even if you are just starting your journey, and we work with a lot of groups that are just starting this Shingo journey, even thinking in terms of how do you want to be remembered? What will your legacy be? Why is this going to matter to people, to your community, to their families? Even that discussion of painting your vision will help positively influence the work that you do to develop behaviors, design systems, and truly empower and engage your people. All right, so that's what I've got for you this morning. I think, Joanne, I am right over 30 seconds. I apologize. You know me long enough to know I can't shut up, so.
That's okay. Thank you so much, Mike. And I know that we are out of time. There are some questions that are in
Okay.
the Q&A, so perhaps you could respond to those after we get off of here.
Sure.
But thank you, Mike, so much for sharing your insights today. And a big thank you to all of you for joining. I hope you found the webinar valuable and engaging. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, and bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.